GT World Challenge Europe this weekend has their sixth round of their season, and it also plays for the Intercontinental GT Challenge Championship. Hello and welcome to the 24 hours of Spa. Well, it's not actually the 24 hours of Spa. It is free practice 2, and we get free practice 2 on the way this weekend with what will be a very, very exciting lineup and a few very, very quick drivers as well. Probably the biggest event of the year, and some that all teams want to win. You've got the Nürburgring 24 hours, you've got Indy 8 hours, which rounds out the Intercontinental GT Challenge. Bathurst, the Bathurst 12 hour, where a lot of drivers struggle to win. It's an endurance race, not a sprint. And that's what's going to make it very interesting coming in to this weekend. We've got, if I go through my list right here, 70 drivers, 18 pro cars, and just a lot of drivers. A lot of freaking drivers to run through here this weekend. 70 cars, 70 teams. This is going to be good. 1 hour of free practice still to come. The drivers now are already out there on the circuit. Getting a feel for the circuit as well. 70 cars, 70 different teams. The pit lane is absolutely stacked with a lot of cars there. Look, is the 80 line speed GP Porsche on pit road at the moment, putting a bit of fuel into that car. And a lot of what these teams will be focused on coming into the early part of this weekend will be a lot of race runs, and that will be probably the most important thing. And we'll run through the classes as this session goes on here. So of course we're at the iconic Spa-Francorchamps circuit, 4.352 miles, 7.004 kilometers. Of course, home to the Formula One Grand Prix. There is though here, look, Valentino Rossi making his run up through towards turn number 1. And on the exit now, mate, out of that first iconic corner as well. First corner, La Source, then up through Rouge and Radion. You would think, with the amount of times I stream Rouge, the amount of times I stream Spa throughout the year, that I'd actually get to know the circuit a little bit. I don't. I really don't know the circuit that well to know every single corner name on this circuit. But we continue to look here as Valentino Rossi makes his run up through towards turn number 3, up through towards turn number 4. It'll be a very, very iconic circuit indeed. There is Valentino Rossi at the moment making his run up through towards Lacombe's, and then in towards the right-hander, of which is Brussels, and on the exit, but Valentino Rossi on his first lap in the early part of free practice.
Massive. Depending on the car, depending on how much the engineers and the designers thought air conditioning was important to driver welfare, is going to play a huge role here. The drivers obviously very fit athletes, but when you're asking those drivers to sit in the car for 3 hours and do a triple, I think it's going to edge this race into a double stint. And you go, okay, that's fine, you're still going to get to 20 hours. But the problem then is you get less rest as a driver. You want to triple through the night. So you, as the third driver getting off, get 6 hours off if you're in the pro lineup, and maybe up to 9 in the 4-drive lineups. And if drivers are only going to double, you're going to get less sleep. So you won't be as hot, but fatigue will come in a different manner.
And I know we're jumping ahead a little bit, but in a sense, Saturday is arguably a little bit easier because the temperatures probably started dropping into the evening, whereas on Sunday they're always going up, aren't they, all the way up to 4:30 when the race finishes. And there, in the pit lane, is the Tsunami RT entry, which is still suffering from dramas earlier on in the day. This is the car of Johannes Zelga, Fabio Babini, Daniel Gaunt and Nico Menzel. This is one of the most colourful cars out there. And as you can see, it is one of the few that is not yet on track. Bent Up, currently the fastest in the Black Castle Ferrari number 74. And up to fifth quickest goes Valentino Rossi, who is sent out to do the opening stint in the WRT BMW F4.
Yeah, Valentino goes just 6,500 slower than Kelvin van der Linde in the sister BMW. So we've been banging the drum for some time, haven't we, that Valentino Rossi isn't here for fun. He is now a GT driver, not an X8 MotoGP rider. And that's what that proves why he serves to be on the grid.
Thought I'd heard a classic through the gravel.
Oh, yes. 42
BMW.
BMW.
42 BMW that has gone off the racetrack. It's the bronze cup car of Callum Williams, Ahmad Al-Hafi, the Century car this, and the other two drivers being Pedro Ibrahim and Javier Sagrera. And Pedro Ibrahim, back from GT4 and Lamborghini racing, is the one that went off. But I'm pleasantly surprised to see he's driven out of the gravel. That doesn't happen very often.
Amazingly, when you go backwards as well, you're on the brake to stop hitting the barriers. You normally naturally kick in, but yeah, that thing pulled away lovely. And if we hadn't gone on camera, you might have been able to get away with that one. The team would have been done otherwise.
Exactly, into gravel mode. Zero is the Corvette coming up towards the timing line that's got Jordan Love behind the wheel. As that car now goes into Las Vegas, let's go on board and have a close look at the Spa circuit.
Flat plane crack V8 screams as we dive downhill. Surprisingly gradient down here in Terrain Rouge. You can see the speed building. Should be 240 kilometers an hour. Terrain Rouge fully flat until we just breathe on the throttle. That's just to keep the track limits. You can now see the speed rising all the way. Should get over just over 260 kilometers an hour before we hit the brake. For the first part of Lagoon, the curve on the left is a great braking reference. It should be down 3 gears as fast as you can. On top of the curve, as close as you can to the gravel, and then just hook up the curve. And you can see from the inside, it's one thing, but then when you look behind and you've got the Castle Ferrari chasing you, it gives you an appreciation of what these drivers are doing. It isn't just what you're doing, it's everything around you. You factor in those gear shifts. You're doing 36 gear shifts a lap round here. You're shifting gear every 3 seconds. You have to turn the wheel, you have to press the pedals. You're communicating to the team. And we're talking about doing that for 3 hours straight with cockpit temperatures, I think, in some of the less favourable cars, up to 60 degrees centigrade. Enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you get to drive as a team on Sunday, it's going to be dramatic. There is talk of a big storm on Saturday night, but we'll see. There is then Jordan Love back in a GT World Challenge Europe race. Remember, we had him a regular in the series 2 or 3 years back, and the Australian good to have on the grid once more. He's got the charging bent up Ferrari behind him. Fastest time thus far, Ricardo Fellers, Brandt Hatch, Sprint Cup winning Porsche. And that's now done a 2:18.879 for the Swiss driver.
Stupid ads. Go away.
There, one of the Audis, still popular, and the grid boosted by a Pro-Am class. They're absolutely ideal for Pro-Am entrants. They're 12th fastest in the times, currently Kelvin van der Linde, and it might only be free practice, it might be early in the session, but nobody leaving anything on the table at Blanchimont. Car's absolutely on the edge there.
Yeah, track limits are going to be watched massively at Blanchimont, not just exit entry as well. So track limits were prevalent, weren't they, last year? The drivers knowing where the rules are, but as a driver, you've got to push those boundaries every single millimetre that's out there.
Up towards La Source, then goes the Zero Corvette, one of the cars that he's entered. Not quite every, but most manufacturers have got all their fleet of cars entered for Intercontinental GT Challenge, which, of course, the Crowdstrike 24 Hours of Spa is a key round of. We've had that first. We've had the Nürburgring. This is round 3 before Suzuka and Indianapolis to round out the year. So much as we talk about the race also factors into GT World Challenge Europe with points scored at 6, 12 and 24 hours. There is also Intercontinental GT Challenge to factor in as well. In silver, Trezor Attento, of course, Monza winners, and Rocco Mazzola, part of that winning crew coming down through the chicane. It looks rather different, doesn't it, for a Trezor Attento out in cargo colours, but Rocco Mazzola proved to be very, very handy a peddler at Monza. And the Italian GT champion comes up towards La Source with a very busy road ahead of him.
Yeah, that's the flavour. So there'll be a few strategies from teams here. Predominantly, they'll want to get their eye in for qualifying. We'll see Mara Angle hanging up his jacket, going to get ready. I say jacket's a slow Mercedes there, staying out the way for the moment. Probably a cool vest, actually. A lot of the drivers investing in a cool vest, just keep their core temperatures down. But yeah, this Audi at Monza was phenomenally fast, wasn't it? And that was when the Cisco got wiped out at turn 1 as well. That looks probably even stronger than that.
Aston Martin, of course, victorious 2 years ago. And it's Lamborghini that comes here as our reigning winner, if you like, at the Crowdstrike 24 Hours of Spa. But that was with the Huracan. Now it's with this Temerario, which is still being developed. Lamborghini may not be quite so competitive this year as last. Then, Rocco Mazzola, third in the times, comes down through Brazil. Fastest, as you can see, is after Leclerc in number 50, AF Corsa Ferrari.
Yeah, 7/10 clear as well. So it's been a fast lap, and 18-1 has moved the game on. Last year, this session was 4/10 slower than FP1. FP1 this morning for these drivers, they were down in the 17. So I still expect another 5 or 6 tenths to be found, but the track temp has just come up so high now. I think these drivers are going to be struggling to do more than 4 or 5 laps before the pressures go out the window. And that's what my point I was making. Some teams will be focused on a quality prep, so they just need one fast lap. Others, I think, will still want to get their eye in for a race run, maybe doing longer runs. The drivers just have to suck up and see how that traffic affects you throughout that run.
So at the moment, we are looking at a session with 47 minutes to go. Rocco Mazzola not improving in sets on this lap. And teams were saying this morning, weren't they, that as soon as the tyre loses its edge with the tyre deck, it's a massive gap. You know, you're not talking of a tenth or so. It's a big, big drop.
Yeah, normally the deg is because of the compound at the top part of the tyre that you use first when it's new is the softest, and then it goes off as Mazzola actually boxes at the end of this lap. But here, I think, is actually surface temperature. The drivers can see pressures and tyre temp, but they can't see the surface temp. And when the teams then get in and do their spread, they see tyre temp of 120 degrees centigrade. Anything above 100 becomes suboptimal, so we're well above that. So there's going to be some style changes for drivers to try and take the energy out of that.
You can see WRT, as ever, in its favourite place at the end of the endurance pits. We have this very long pit lane because we link the F1 pits, the top pits, with the endurance pits, bottom pits. Some prefer to be in the top, some prefer to be in the bottom. Come what may, it is a longer way through that pit lane. So up to the timing line comes the windward Mercedes 48. This is the car that Mara Engel will take over, seemingly on the next stop for it. Lucas Auer doing driving duties at the moment. And for Mara Engel, it's another important weekend. He's won the previous 2 races within IGTC. However, life, even if he wins this, gets rather uncomfortable because the next 2 clash with his DTM duties. So sadly, it doesn't look like he's going to be able to convert that great early season success into a title attack. But Lucas Auer up to third fastest, that time around 2:18.7. Best lap of the session, 2:18.1 from Arthur Leclerc.
The only non-Ferrari in the top 4 at the moment, this yellow Windward man filter Mercedes. He's got some good track space at the moment to Petrovelli, the Acuria cross car, so he's only just under a tenth off the fastest in sector 1. So it's still a good sector so far from Lucas Auer. Mercedes always looks so poised and balanced, doesn't it? We rarely see it snapping out of oversteer. It has a nice pitch up the brake. You can see the nose dive down. A huge V8 engine, really helping the drivers feel the front axle, and the rear is so solid. One of our older GT3 cars, of course, going to be replaced in the next few years, as we understand.
Older chassis it may be, but still very competitive indeed. And as you made the point earlier, it's a good go-to car for some of the bronze drivers, the AMs in the Pro-Am class here this weekend as well. So Lucas Auer coming up behind Giacomo Petrovelli there in the black Ford Acuria class Aston Martin of this 69 strong entry. And at the moment we are missing 3 with a time, one of which is Marcus Winkelhock, a double winner of the event. He's just ventured out in the number 84 Audi, but then there's the Tsunami car as well, and one other that hasn't ventured out.
The Isuzu.
Holy ads.
So it's the end of the lap comes Lucas out. I'm not seeing anybody really ripping up the timing sheet with purple sectors, very few greens either. You've worked out who's missing.
I think it's the Pure X racing car. Did you mention that one?
I did not.
The 9 car.
Okay. So it's obviously been on track, but number 9 in the earlier session, but number 9 not out there yet. Right, Lucas out of Bales, and this is a car that's in the endurance pit, so it's a long, slow drive down the pit lane. And if you're a doyen of the Spa 24 Hours, you remember what happened to Alessandro Pierguidi getting stuck in that little chute coming from pit in to the actual line. But it happened again, can you believe, somebody last week in the British GT race.
Yeah, it was painful, wasn't it? The Marshals got there as quickly as they could, but there was 4 or 5 GT2 cars stacked up. Their race was really lost. We went a lap down, so there's nothing you can do. The entrance is narrow. It's not even unique to Spa. There's lots of pit lanes in the world. They're only 1 car wide, but it just feels that entry so long and uphill for it to happen twice now. The lightning formed a pattern.
Yeah, it's in the first of the 2 GT2 races at the British GT weekend, just to clarify the point. But yes, we looked at each other thinking, really? It's happened again. There is the crew that won 2 years back, Nicky Tim, Marco Sorensen, Matthew Adrudi in 007 Aston Martin. And this car, as yet, is not really affecting the timing order, but it is getting there. 26th, as you can see. Nicky Tim is at the wheel of it. Coming out of Brussels now with the first 20 minutes of this second free practice period almost done. We've had a few dramas in earlier support sessions, but so far so good. Nicky Tim now coming down towards the fast left of corner.
See the speed staying about 170 k's as he has to bring it in for a second apex 200. There's the traffic. He's catching Jonathan Hui in front of him. As a driver, you'll be thinking, am I going to get to the end of this lap clear? Because at the moment, this would be just enough to get them in Super Bowl, wouldn't it, if it was on an average in 26th? That shows you how tight that is going to be. So close to the gravel there. We saw an Aston last year throwing the barrier, didn't we, in Super Bowl? Enrique Chavez in the Brackenhurst car. So there's so much jeopardy around this Spa circuit. And that is perverse to say, but that's why drivers love it. You can have a monster crash at 90% of the corners. And that's what the drivers want. They want that jeopardy of, I want to drive as fast as I can, but I want to know when I've made a mistake. And I want it to be painful in a sadistic way.
Yeah, that Enrique Chavez moment, you're right, he put it in the barrier, and that put the car out for the weekend. So it was very costly indeed. Nicky Tim now then into the chicane. Jonathan Hui ahead of him, and Nicky Tim decides enough's enough out of this stint. Into the pit lane comes the Contu Racing run. Aston Martin, the other crack Belgian team. There's always been something about SRO GT3 racing and Belgian team swapping. Go back to the early days of what was then called Rock Endurance Series. You had the Mark VDS BMWs and the WRT Audis, 2 Belgian teams. Now you've got WRT versus Contu. For Rover Racing, though, 98 BMW is set to go, and eventually decides, yeah, I'll go. If the team lets it go. 48-mile angle to take over. The car drops down. This car, of course, in Pro, where you're allowed 3 drivers to a car, and all the other cars is 4.
They're just going through their procedure, a minimum fueling time, so it looks like they're just going through the whole procedure just to make sure everyone is well versed in that, and then we give the signal to fire the engine up, the blast out. He only has about 25% of the pit lane left, which is doing a bit more work, mechanic going in the door, so maybe not quite as routine as we first thought.
Mauro Engel, the joint championship leader within IGTC, along with Maxime Martin, well, of course, this weekend, because it's largely a GT World Challenger race that takes priority, they are split with their regular teams. This is the car that bent up drove earlier on, Dustin Blattner, Matthew Joubert, Dennis Marshall, the other drivers. That's a mighty lineup as well. Matthew Joubert, part of that Genesis Hypercar program in the World Endurance Championship, certainly a man to watch. And the Blattner company car drops back down, and the Castle Run entry accelerates down the pit lane.
Yeah, he almost had a standout Le Mans legion there. Those parts of his stints just looked the best on track, so he'll be interesting to watch. And it's very disciplined race. If you were a newcomer to motorsport and you go to 24-hour race or someone, it's a completely different circuit. The up, the down, the undulation, and then the fact it is, as we've got a red flag out at the moment, the fact that it is all single class. Yes, we've got 4 subclasses, and that's done on driver grading. All of these cars are GT3 cars, as we see the Audi in the wall at the exit of No Name by the looks of it. It's run into the barrier, but damage doesn't look too bad. Luckily for them, looks like the wing is slightly higher at the top of the wall, or the end plate is just being flipped around 90 degrees, actually.
Looks like Pierre Castellan was the man that's put the car off. Yet Speaker's Corner is the unofficial name for that part of the circuit, because it was the one place that you could see from the old commentary box, the old speaker's room, from the grandstand opposite the pits, the old pits. And these days it's become the Jackie Ickx Corner, but there are one or two that say it's a horrible corner anyway. Let's not name it after Jackie Ickx, and they still go back to calling it Speaker's Corner. However, it doesn't have much runoff, and as you can see, it is ensnared an Audi. And so the Haas RT car is going to have to be hoiked out of there. It will possibly just knock the rear wing askew, and this is how he got there. Look at the there's a bit of help possibly if you look at the top of the screen. There was another car involved, so possibly Pierre Castellan was bundled out of the way there.
It's like a Porsche to me, maybe a Boots and BDS one. Right, trying to spot it in the distance. It's the only negative when there's only 68 cars to guess, because I know one of them which it was not, but. Yeah, that will be looked upon from race control, of course. Not historically an overtaking spot, because it is such a short brake zone, as the marshal's already on scene. And that's the positive of the cars having to do 80 Ks under a red flag. We don't have to wait for all of those cars to get back to pit lane as viewers watch on the stream. That's the best way to do motorsport at the track, but with the live onboards and the stream provided.
And Shagoo there in the Red Bull hats, looking on as well. Another driver that was at Le Mans a couple of weeks ago, although sadly his race ended with damage. While we have this red flag, Britt Lucas down in the pit lane has been busy, and he has been able to find Valentino Rossi for his thoughts on the weekend. Let's join Britt.
Well, you're used to racing around these sorts of conditions, Valley. It's very, very tough conditions-wise out there. We're looking at the times. 2:18 is the best so far. That's nowhere near what we saw in the prologue. Just how tough is it out there?
Yeah, the temperature and the condition are really, really extreme, because for Spa this temperature is quite unusual. So I think that everybody suffer with, especially with the tires that become pretty hot. But anyway, I mean, we did some modify at the car. I feel quite good when I drive. My lap was not so bad, and with the new tire to have a clean drive that is not so bad. Looks like that we are not the strongest of the field, but we will see. It's just Thursday, so maybe we can improve.
It's early days. It's not qualifying. You don't have to worry just yet. But are you having to adapt and change your driving style because of the conditions out there, because of the track surface and how slippery it is?
Yeah, everything becomes more difficult, you know. And
such a unexpected ad. Such an unexpected ad. I don't get that.
Like this with the hot is also more easy to make mistakes. So when you try to push just a little bit more, you go wide, you go in the dirt. So you need always to drive like this, you know.
You're pretty good at that. Thanks very much.
Grazie. Thank you. Ciao. Ciao.
A valid point Valentino Rossi makes about needing to be ultra careful, and his army of fans, of course, are here. There were many of them in the Spa town last night for the parade, where the BMWs were focus of attention, and all parked themselves out what has now become Palmeiras, the old Chandelier d'Or bar, and had a good photo shoot there. But the town last night, possibly because of the weather helping, was absolutely heaving. Good news is the Audi doesn't look damaged particularly, maybe a little wisp of smoke as bodywork might rub a tyre, but it's got away lightly.
Is it doing more than 80k? How often do we see this? You cause the red flag, and unfortunately should be at 80. Normally the Audi with his hazard lights on, but yeah, the damage doesn't look too severe. The end plate will just get bolted back onto the wing unless it's pulled through the fastening, and now I think we're at 80, so hopefully they get away with that as the hazard lights do come on.
And while that car has got going, others are still coming into the pit lane, so we should be able to go back to green on short notice here, because the Audi won't be far off rejoining. It's not like we need lots of barrier repairs or anything like that. We have had that in earlier sessions today, but the session should be able to get back underway fairly swiftly. Niels Vitic, the race director, will be keeping an eye to all of this. So the car that Arthur Leclerc had topped the times in has now been given over to Sean Gamal and Fabio Schiller, another of the Nürburgring 24-hour winners, takes over number 17, Mercedes AMG, that is currently second. There is the Schumacher CLRT Porsche, number 22. As you can see, that's the car that Matt Campbell returns to Europe to drive, along with Larry Heinrich and Ian.
I think it was the Porsche behind, actually, the car collection motorsport car that might have got into the side of the Audi. And you can just see the mechanics just checking the front end out of that car.
Best of the Porsche is quite a long way down yet, but there's a lot of session that's still to go. With this being free practice, of course, the clock carries on ticking. So all of this eating into the available hour. And Cap, Pierre Castellan, the short code on the Lumirank, comes into the pit lane last night. A very simple touch, but a really effective one. All the cars with that Lumirank display, it flipped between 248 for 24 hours or Spa, and it just looked really cool as they all came into town promoting the event. It's a simple touch, but good thinking. Right, the Audi arrives at pit in. We're still under red flag conditions. A couple of cars leaving the pit lane under the red light has been noted. That tends not to end well.
And one of them being the 46 as well. So interesting to know, does that mean they were left their box when it was red? Did they drive through the end of pit lane in a red? Either or is bad news. Session will resume in just over 1 minute's time.
Yeah, Matt Tesser is now in that 46 BMW. That's the line speed Porsche being put away. Jordan Pepper storms out of the pit box in the 32 BMW.
That line speed Porsche being fast but problematic, hasn't it? Had a cut steering. Yeah, exactly. Ricard had to retire from in a podium position at the time. And Brands Hatch, a similar story. So,
and then it got drilled at Monza, so we never really saw what it was capable of.
Porsche being unlucky, haven't they?
Yeah,
When you taking the boots of VDS1 as well. With I saw on Instagram an account who worked out how many seconds each race had lasted, and I think one was 30, one was 42, and one was 20, and one was 0 because they missed the second race at Branch. That's right. Because the damage was so bad in race 1. That car just has had 0 luck on opening laps so far due to World Challenge Europe.
And 2 of the 3 races, it's down Robbie Knudsen has been the Paul Blake. Big nail on the first lap. Gio Magnus was the start driver at Monza. That didn't really bring any better luck. Green lights are on then, and so we go green at the end of the pit lane. The cars are now able to be released. And there's this long climb up the hill. And also, just to bear in mind, you can see there the little bit of red tar, the red painting on the inside of the line. Drivers have in the past cut that, so it's a slightly quicker pit exit, but that's being very carefully controlled now, because the thought is if someone's having a drama at the top of Radion and you're cutting that corner, there's a greater chance that you might meet in the middle. So anybody doing it in this session is going to get a fairly draconian penalty to get the message across.
It's always just quite a nice life hack. You just used to keep it pinned, and you were nowhere near the pit line exit when you went there. And it was an unwritten rule that wasn't monitored, so it wasn't illegal. But quite rightly, as the event gets bigger and the whole support behind the scenes from SRO, it just kind of brings the professional level up step and step. And the full cut has got to be worth a second a lap. So it's a big difference as a driver. The worst is when you've been doing it for a decade, to then go back to doing something legal makes it very difficult.
Number 700 you just saw getting ready to go. Then Nico Bart, Xavier Knauf, Greg Servet, Sarah Bowling, Aston Martin.
Okay, just hit halfway in this session. Just got over 30 minutes to go there. Look, the 50 Ferrari at the moment on top. 218.169 over the 17 Aston Martin with Maxime Martin, Goetz and Fabian Schiller. The 3 drivers on board that car, about 1/10 between that 50 Ferrari. That immediately looks quick over that 17 Aston Martin. And of course, currently has on board Martin on board that car. At the moment, of course, the lighting is not ideal. So, Maxime Martin, currently on board that car, and of course, took over from, in the early part of the session, Goetz, who was inside that car, and has now, of course, taken over. But we now reach the halfway point. The car's now back out on to the circuit. Of course, a 70-car lineup, of course. First of all, we start off with the 206 Corvette GT3 with Prince Jeffrey Ibrahim on board. We've also got the Ibrahim brothers, Prince Abu Bakr Ibrahim, Jordan Love, and Ben Green, a 4-car lineup there, as you heard from the commentary team. Pro teams allowed to have, of course, that's 3 driver lineup, and of course the other classes have 4 driver lineups, and that will help with driver fatigue as well. Of course, this looked the car that was in the barrier just over 5-10 minutes ago. Now back inside the pit lane in the Pro-Am class of, and probably actually one of the most coloured cars on the circuit at the moment. But yeah, just hit the halfway point, and it's the 50 Ferrari on top, 218.169.
Each into a Group A and a Group B to split the classes to give people a bit of track time. So it's going to be very, very busy in terms of monitoring who's doing what, when and where. And that only sorts out the back of the grid. The top 32 gets a super pole tomorrow.
Yeah, and then when we get the 4 drive lines, we go to ABC as well. So there's going to be a huge amount of shuffling there. And so it'll be interesting to see what the optimal session is to be out there. As the evening goes on, the track temp will fall away. That will be a positive. Background will get drawn on. So there's going to be a few teams out there and drivers using the new excuse. So there's a huge number of votes here for Jordan Pepper right in the middle of the ball. That's a rare moment to have. We saw the speed earlier from Nicky T. We got doing 180 kilometers an hour at that point. But touch the exit curve in between the 2 apexes at 10 and 11. It's actually monitored this year, the track limits in between the 2. It wasn't last year. And that was a lively moment. And Pepper will be fully awake.
Will indeed. Harry George, number 4 McLaren, fully awake as well. His pit lane speed is under investigation. So all of that, of course, carefully monitored, and the information goes to race control. Jordan Pepper's lap looks spectacular. The sector times would argue, look they really here.
Yeah, that's the problem with tyre temp. Once it's too high, the car moves around, too slight. You generate more tyre temp, too slight, and then you're stuck in the cycle. As a driver, you feel like you're driving on eggshells. You're holding the steering wheel with just your thumb and index finger, trying to be as gentle as possible. And it's just so frustrating. You have to really under-energize the car. And that feels very alien for racing drivers, as that lap of a 2-minute 20.3. 2.2 off the fastest of the lap. Gives you a good illustration of how hard these drivers have to work to get lap time out of these cars.
Now here, one of the Grunt and Go Mustangs that was so unlucky to be wiped out, both of them at the first corner of the Monza race. 64, first up, is the car in the hands of Ultra Mighty Fabio Scherer and Thomas Drouet. And they sound fantastic, these cars, as we know. They're real fan favourites. But this one has got a little bit of time to find just at the minute. This is the car of Fabio Scherer. He's raced Formula 3 here, he's raced DTM here, he's been a LMP2 class winner here in the World Endurance Championship as well.
It's a good lap this though. His sector 1 was his fastest, and actually the 8th fastest we've had out of anyone in the session. Sector 2 was okay, not amazing. And when the field is so tight, that's the problem. You just can't have an average sector. We saw last year qualifying 4 separated the top 32 by just a single second. And you can see that average sector 2, I was talking about 1.8 off the fastest after a mega sector 1. It's going to punch the line. This might get him in the top 40, 43rd. That shows you exactly the competitive nature of this GT World Challenge field.
The incident that put number 28 Audi in the gravel did involve 8 Porsche, the car collection car of Reinhold Kran, Joel Stern, Nicola Rossi and Nicola Sciuro. So that's the one that's having been looked at in the pits by the team and by race control as well.
Yeah, Stern in the car at the time. I remember looking at the timing screen, so Niels Vittich will want a certain work with him, I'm sure.
Fabio Scherer, meantime, pressing on, see if he can get another lap out of this set of tyres before they lose their edge. The Mustang then makes that run up the hill again. Comes towards us into Le Combe. So Fabio Scherer into Le Combe, but as he turns in on this lap, quicker again within the first sector.
Look at the rear tyre giving up already. So I assume this could have been a new tyre run. This is the second lap of it. The speed trap was good as well at the end of the kennel for this car. Yourselves is a hard corner because you're still braking into the mid part. You want to rotate the car, jump on the gas, but you've got to drag it back to the right for No Name or Speaker's Corner or Jackie Hicks, depending on what you first learned. As a racing driver, we have to stick to the first time we drove the circuit, being our IQ too low. It is a good sector one. You can see on the graphic, this is where Pepper had his slide a few laps back. The Ford looking very poised through there. And Evo this year, so some aero updates for this car.
Right, Shearer closing on the traffic ahead. Meanwhile, the top time of the session is still that of Arthur Leclerc from earlier on. Joseph Loke has gone up to 8th. He's the most recent significant improver in the Garage 59 McLaren, number 59. And that then is a 289. Other improvers include Jules Goodman, who's got number 3 Mercedes, now up to 15th.
Shearer much better sector 2. It's Rob Eischen in the JMW Ferrari in front, just the right distance. You actually start to get a bit of a toe at this length, but you won't be losing any of the front grip. Importantly, they had one more break to go. It was that track limits on the exit of Blanchemont turn 17. It was close if it wasn't over. Got to get it stopped into the bus stop, got it too deep. And as a driver, it's so tempting to. You look at your delta time, you're up on your fastest lap. So what do? I go even faster. And already you're at your braking point and he crosses the line. He goes up to 10th. So it was a good lap. But for me, 3 or 4 tenths lost in the last sector and maybe a track limit. We'll keep an eye on the timing screen for that one.
Okay, and as we do that, the session has got just 23 minutes still to go. And we can go to the pit lane again, in fact, while we look at this battle pack on track. Because Gwenelle Longy, our French reporter, has found Gaspard Simon. And we'll hear from that.
Gaspard Simon, winner of the SRO Academy last season in France. First ever time here at the Crowdstrike 24 Hours of Spa. How does it feel like to be driving here?
That's very special. The part was really special yesterday, and for me, it's my biggest event in my career. And just at the beginning of the FP2, to have a lot of people involved in the grandstand, it's very special for me. So let's see what we can do.
What's the aim for you guys in the silver class?
To be good, to have a good race. The first victory is to finish the race. To be honest, we have to work here on the car. It's really difficult to see what is your pace. It will be really hard doing the quali with the hot temperature for the Aston Martin. It's a British car, so there's not a lot of hot temperature in British. So let's see, but I have a lot of pressure. That's the first of all, and let's see after.
Un petit mot en français, Gaspard, à présent, c'est votre première participation ici au Crowdstrike 24 heures de sport en tant que vainqueur de la SRO Academy la saison dernière. Beaucoup de choses nouvelles pour vous ce week-end et avec des conditions pas faciles pour découvrir cette course. Racontez-nous un peu comment vous vivez ce début de semaine.
Ah, c'est sûr que c'est la première fois que je roule avec des conditions aussi chaudes, j'ai envie de dire. C'est juste spécial. Déjà, la parade, c'est ma première parade de 24 heures. C'est juste exceptionnel. Déjà, en quittant les stands en FP2, il y a un nombre de personnes dans les tribunes et on n'est que le jeudi, c'est juste exceptionnel. Donc j'ai envie de vous dire du plaisir, c'est juste.
Merci Gaspard, bonne session.
Step 1.
So Gaspard Simon, who was the winner of the SRO GT Academy last year and has had an impressive debut season. We've got a few more cars now being looked at for pit lane speed, but this car down the pit lane is the other Mustang. Massive effort by Hunt to effectively build 2 new cars for this weekend. 65 is the Finn House, Maxi Most and Eduardo Costain at Rice entry. 50 in the meantime is the fastest Ferrari thus far. That's only looked like Arthur Leclerc, Sean Gallisle. The car's got Sean Gallisle behind the wheel of it, and this car currently a 10th of a second, just over a 10th of a second to the good.
Yeah, quite the gap before G2R chances as we look at the 59 car, Joseph Loke.
Short track, 7 kilometres, you know.
Loads of space as well.
Yeah.
7th at the moment for this car, half a second off fastest. And this car was rapid, wasn't it, last year in the hands of Marvin Kershaw. Another victim of Monza Turn 1. Spoke to Marvin this morning. Whole new chassis on this car. So even though carbon fibre technology, they've had to replace the tub. And that's the first time it's run here, so they were learning the car. He gives a good draft to Maxime Martin, who's second fastest at the moment, as you can see on the Lumerank.
Indeed so, and as he gets to the end of the first sector of the lap, Maxime Martin goes no quicker, even with a little bit of a toe. session with 20 minutes still to run. And apart from that Audi going off into the gravel, the only real issues in this have been people speeding in the pit lane. But it gets looked at now in the race.
Yeah, they might look a bit amateur why so many cars are speeding in the pit lane, but the pit lane nearly a kilometre long, 992 metres. You're doing it for 72 metres, 72 seconds. So you need every 0.1 of the kilometre. So the teams get greedy. And even though the pit lane speed limit is 50k, that's the circuit's 50k. Is that your 50k? So you'll go, you set at 50, you're only doing 49.5. So you set it at 50.5, and then suddenly you're doing 50.1. So I just think it's worth clearing up. It looks a bit amateur, like I said, teams getting dumped for speeding, but it's pure greed and performance the reason why they're doing it.
And Joseph Logue, I think, backs out of that lap, doesn't he? Because he sees Christopher Haase behind him, so he lets the Audi go. And Joseph Logue elects not to bother with that lap. And that's on the 22 Porsche, which has got Fred McAvicky in the wheel. He's replaced Larry Heinrich in the last few days. Good to have Fred Macco back in a Porsche. And here's somebody with a massive commitment to GT3 racing over the years. Different brands, but good to have him back in a Porsche. 20 years of GT3, of course, being celebrated this season. And if you're with money burning a hole in your pocket, you might.
As we continue our way through this session. Hello, RN. Welcome in, my friend. Welcome in. Big weekend. Big weekend. A couple hours away now from the first free practice session for F1. Of course, make sure you're there because I will be making my predictions there. But a big weekend. Crowdstrike Spa, 24 hours, and along with F1. I've actually got to get set up for F1 this weekend because I've been planning for the Crowdstrike Spa 24 hours for the whole week. So got to get set up with that. But of course that session gets underway in just over 5.5 hours time. At the moment, Sean Gale at the top of the 50 Ferrari on a 219.4 in the early part of this. In the late part of this session, as we take a look at that Red Bull coloured Mercedes. Was that possibly track limits there for that Mercedes? As we take a look at Fred McAvicky making his run now up through towards the top part of the circuit in front of him there. The 222 Red Bull Mercedes in the bronze class. In the Pro-Am class, though, Fred McAvicky at the moment sitting in position 34. But what about GTA 6? Oh, geez. Wow. To be honest, I've heard about possibly there being some pre-orders for that game. You can actually pre-order GTA 6, which is actually insane. It's actually insane. As we take a look at the Porsche there. So just noting that possibly that Mercedes getting a bit too close, backing out, getting another lap done for that 22 Porsche, backing out from the dirty air of that Merc. And once more finding a bit of clear air. And now we'll start once more another lap in this session. A lot of drivers will be looking for those qualifying simulations. 4 paths to qualifying in the top 33. Top 32 go through to Super Bowl on Saturday. So it'll be very interesting indeed as the cars now make their run up through towards Rouge and Radion. Then into Les Combes. And possibly Fred McAvicky there cutting a bit too much at the top of Rouge. As we look there at the Chavez 34 Aston Martin at the moment. Who is on board the 34 Aston? Of course, that is in the Pro-Am class, and it is possibly Chavez on board that car. If not, it is Christian Krogers or Jamie Day on board that car. Very successful, of course, in the Le Mans 24-hour just a couple of weeks ago. But here we look at the Team WRT silver classed number 30 BMW coming into the weekend. Of course, on board that car, Montenegro, Matisse Lismore, Emery Cordial, and Matthew Dietrich. At the moment, it is Montenegro on board that car now, making his run up through towards the Les Combes section of the circuit. About 3/10 up personal west through the first sector. At the moment, sitting in class P14. We've got the number 9 Porsche that was, of course, in the gravel just over half an hour ago. That car back in the pit lane. As we take a look here at the beautiful Spa Mountains this weekend, where we will be racing for 24 hours on Saturday. I'll be doing the night today stint here as well. It's 1 a.m. for me when the race starts. So, and I'm not like people who get up at 1 a.m. and stream for 24 hours. I'm not that type of person, but I will be streaming the night through today stint for probably a good 5 hours on Saturday. So be very interesting to see what happens there. But Montenegro now making his run up through towards the back part of the circuit. He's lost a bit of time through the middle sector. At the moment, not improving, but he was up through the first sector, 3/10 up on our leader. We're about 3/10 off our leader at the moment. That would put him about P8 or P9, but he's lost nearly 2 seconds through the second sector. So we will see where that puts him in this BMW. Now hard on the brakes in through towards the final couple of corners, being turn 18 through turn 19, the chicane. Once more applying the power in that silver rated class BMW there. Look at the McLaren behind him of Fitzsimmons in the 23 McLaren. Now braking once more through towards turn of 1. 13.5 minutes to go left here in the second part of free practice. As we take a look at the gold-rated Chevrolet. The Corvette, should I say. The Corvette. Or Chev, either one. Now in pit lane and doing a bit of a pit stop practice in the late part of this session. 1 hour to get these cars up to speed. Get the setup styled in, of course, as now cars make their way out of pit lane once more. Should be very interesting to see what happens in like 15 or so minutes in this circuit. Possibly a few qualifying simulations still to come.
Front to Horace.
Yeah, Dennis Lynn still massively underrated as a driver. He's been a champion, of course, in Lamborghini Super Trofeo. He's been a champion in Rockman GT8, as it was then called. You've seen him win British GT as well. But it would be great to have him back in a regular frontline car, that is for sure. It's a good character as well as a really good driver.
Yeah, exactly that. Last bit of trivia. So the only manufacturer I didn't mention was this one, Lamborghini. They're not inside the top 15 at the moment. They are 18th at the moment, makes me a Paul in the 63. There's a slow Porsche there. Hopefully just getting out of the way at the moment. Doesn't seem to be moving very quickly out of the source. But this car, effectively, I would call our race winner from last year, the Grasser GRTT. The winners, but with a Hurricane and a very different driver lineup.
Yeah, very true. Marco Bortolotti is the one constant ill of that. Dan Harper's BMW, you can see there coming up the hill towards us. So Marco Mapelli, by the look of it, is behind. Oh no, sorry, Maxime Paul, it is, isn't it? Behind the wheel of 63 as it comes now into Legon. Who else have we had improving of late? I'll just remind you, it's got another 64 Mustang up into the top 11. We've got 12 minutes of this session to go. Maximilian Paul went now down through Bruxelles. Somebody else that's come via the German GT and then into the DTM ranks. But it's an impressive driver.
Yeah, hugely so. And kind of that aggressive build, isn't he? That younger GT driver, which we see with a bit more of a single-seater mentality, single driver, sprint racing mentality. And for them, that mentality is actually merged into what modern GT racing is. We say it over and over again. You can tick it off your bingo list. Spa 24 Hours is a sprint race. It's 24 sprint sessions in one go. If you don't push every session like a sprint, you won't win. When you do push it like that, the failure rate goes through the roof. So that's the position you get stuck in this epic race.
Ferrari through the Court Paul Fred campus into the Court Paul Fred. The dynamic GT Porsche you can see there. And Maximilian Paul's lap is not going to be any improvements, but it is mileage. And Lamborghini, in fairness, not really coming here looking for a win this year. They know that car is still in development. It's perhaps a frustration to somehow the development rate is continuing, but Lamborghini have been savvy to try and get the cars to different teams. So you've got Crowdstrike developing one, you've got Ramsey, who's been a loyal servant to the Lamborghini brand. He's developing another for his team. over the timing line goes Maximilian Palmer. This long run down towards La Source, and although you might think that is flat, it's still another climb into the corner, and then finally you get round the other side of the hairpin, and eventually the road does drop down the hill.
Over 100 metres of elevation change over the 7 kilometres here. To quantify what 100 metres is, that's a 30-storey building. Every single lap you're going up and down it. And again, another bit of ammo if you ever need it, and why the drivers love this place.
Can I tell you how hard work it was on Sunday running it at the end of the day? It was brutal. Seeing all the fans in the grandstand overlooking over Rouge there in the shade, nobody wanting a seat at front for a change. Right, Dynamics brought 54 into its box. Then the Porsche of Tamas Tiracool, Francesco Simorazzi, Angus Whiteside, and Lawrence Cabiru.
New set of boots going on.
Yeah, interesting. With just 10 minutes to go. And you've got the Rutronic Lamborghini just ahead of it. You can see me drop down off it still, so I need to go back out.
This couldn't be a better quality sim if you tried it. In terms of fuel load will be low, brand new set of tyres, the closest you're going to get to the time of day for qualifying as well. And been a relatively steady driver change, isn't it? It feels like this is the hold-up, but normally this is done in under 20 seconds. So maybe a belt getting caught behind the drivers, the normal one. Teams practice, and even how the belts are hot is a huge point of contention.
I love that shot with it down at the chicane. The inner track is the racetrack, the outer lane is pit in. And you can see how beautifully manicured the lawns are, painted curves, repainted for the weekend. Very patriotic, of course, all the Belgian colours being represented down at the chicane there.
Very tricky, isn't it?
It is a bit, yeah. Meanwhile, Jules Gounon is 17th in the times in the Red Bull Verstappen.com but 2C's run. Mercedes comes down through the run after the endurance pits, down through Rouge and Labradi on the other side. And this is a car, I think, working his way through a programme. Meanwhile, we talked about Joseph Loeb going well earlier on. He's given the car over. Brain is with Joseph in the pit lane.
Joseph, you were quickest in the third prologue. I know it's different conditions, very wet out there. Can you give us an idea? You're about 5-6 tenths off at the moment, which isn't terrible at all. But just how different is it? Just how difficult is it out there in the car?
I think I speak for the whole grid when I say this. This weekend has been horrible as drivers. Like, the grid level is so low. I don't really know why. Like, we went out for the paint test on Tuesday, and we genuinely thought there was a problem. Like, it just didn't feel right at all. To be fair, I think we've made some good steps since then. I don't think the pace is too bad, but I'm interested to see where we end up come qualifying. But I honestly can't tell you at the moment.
Is there anything you can do to the car between now and qualifying as well? I know you get limited to what you can do that can get you those improvements, because it's fine margins, but no one's set in the world like time-wise.
Yeah, I mean, we made a big step. Car's definitely more underneath.
Go your own way.
I feel a lot more comfortable. I feel like I can push a little bit more now. You know, where we go from here, I don't know. There's definitely some things that we can tweak, but it feels like we've tried everything at the moment. So yeah, we'll try a few things for sure. But I think now that we're in a good window, I don't really think we'll change too much. Good luck. Thank you.
Macclesfield's finest racing driver, Joseph Loeb, talking about grip. When he said he's been horrible, I was expecting him to talk about temperature, but grip was the problem.
And he did the time of that car. That's the 7th fastest time of this session. So there's 62 other cars with 3 or 4 drivers in that are going to use stronger adjectives than Joseph Loeb just used. That was a punchy interview. I like it this early on, as Per Schoffer is now getting his laps in just before quali. Interesting to see how they run these drivers in qualifying, and then they get through to Super Bowl, which driver will drive.
Because it's going to be the same driver throughout all of Super Bowl. It's not like that other 24-hour race the other week where it had to be a different driver across every aspect. Here, whoever is given Super Bowl has to do potentially all 4 parts of it if you are good enough. We go from 32 to 16 to 8 to 4. Punchy interview from Joseph Lowe. Punchy approached a lick on by Martin Kirchhoff, wasn't it? He was not spending any more time behind that alley. He was coming through.
Yeah, after they got knocked out with Monta, so maybe they feel attack is the best form of defence. But I can see what Joseph Lowe meant about this guy. It just doesn't have any purchase. It doesn't seem to load up. It goes into a slide very easily. That's obviously what they're feeling in the car. There's no purchase, there's no bite. So it just feels like you're never able to lean on the car as much as you want. And it's obviously not a car problem because they're fast. And everyone else is commenting the same thing. Full course yellow.
Indeed so. We've got everyone slowing down. So the full course yellow comes and the field slows on instruction. This may be because of the car off. It may be just another practice from race control just to get teams and drivers used to it, because if you tried it in FP1, it could have been different drivers in the cars. So let's quickly activate a full course yellow. There's going to be plenty in the race, I suspect. It gets everybody drilled into what the speed feels like and how you get there safely.
Yeah, it's quite a stringent procedure these days, how it comes up on the driver display, counting down from 10 on the display, but the teams can be notified anything up to 20 seconds in advance. And the rule is, once it is full course yellow, when it hits 0, you need to be doing 80k. Sounds simple, right? But there's so much time to be found. You could be doing 265 kilometers an hour at the end of the Kemmel Straight, but you need to knock off 185 kilometers an hour as quickly and as efficiently as possible, but on time as well. And we see that gap ebb and flow so much, don't we, under a full course yellow. The teams love to maximise doing their pit stops during this procedure as well.
And of course, some drivers will stand on the brakes and get there quickly, and others might be a little bit slower. And so this is why we sometimes have a Larry moment or two. But this looks like a genuine test from Niels Visage and his team in race control. This is La Source hairpin that you're hovering over. And the other side of that is that big gravel bed on one side, but then the run all the way down to Eau Rouge. 4 more minutes of this session to go. It looks like Ferrari will top the times come the end of it.
We spoke about the probability of full course yellows. Last year we had 15 full course yellows, so it is a real thing for the team subs to try and factor in to strategy, but also how the car reacts. If we go short full course yellow, we go straight back to green, or the long full course yellow procedure means we'll always go to a safety car afterwards to get those tyre temps back up. But I mean, with it being so warm this weekend, Niels Visage is probably going to take a different view on that as you see the race on pit lane as the car leaving. This is where they were cutting on the left, where the Mercedes is now. We've got to keep one wheel on the white line at all times.
The best time, by the way, this morning in FP1, Alessio Rovera's Ferrari at 2:17.234. The best we've had now, 2:18.1, nearly a full second slower. Now, all right, one more rubber's gone down and temperatures have gone up, but it's like a completely different session altogether.
Yeah, last year the 2-session difference was 4/10, like I mentioned at the start. So FP2 normally slow because less teams doing a new tyre run because it's warm. But this year, that drop off is massive, and it's just the temperature's gone through the roof as we look at Crowdstrike running 2 cars, one Porsche, one Lamborghini. It was the Porsche that nearly won them last year, wasn't it? They're on that slightly left field strategy, running slightly different. They didn't have the overall pace over a lap. I felt like their strategy was probably the best and the most left field inside the top 10.
But they did claim a win because they were the winning IGTC entrant home. So they won a round of that championship, even if they were second, perhaps by 24 hours off the start. More pit lane speeds are being looked at. For some, this is almost the end of the session, isn't it? Because you're not going to do a time now. You might as well take this opportunity to do some more practice pit stops. You can see that's what WRT is doing around number 32 that Charles Weirts has brought into the pit lane. See the driver change going on. This is in the foreground as Mercedes and Audi venture back out. Others go to the pit box. Look, the car's being pushed away.
Yeah, they're done for the session, and that's the positive of this session for the teams now being a free practice, not a pre-qualifying, as it has been in previous years. Used to be pre-qualifying. In case qualifying got cancelled, you'd take the times from this, but it meant the checks were much more stringent, and the cars went into a long park ferment process in case there was any problems in scrutiny. Whereas now, it's just a general free practice.
So through the chicane, they come. There's less than a lap time left in the session, so this might run us now up to the checkered flag. But you've got Ferrari from Mercedes AMG, from Ferrari from McLaren, from Ferrari from Mercedes AMG, from McLaren, from Porsche, from Audi, from Mercedes AMG as your top 10. Interesting mix, but looking pretty decent for Ferrari, isn't it?
It really is. They've shown their hand pretty early in terms of pace. McLaren, Mercedes up there as well. That's what McLaren and Mercedes up there. Porsche knocking on the door. The Audi keeping the form up as well. Always like to try and make an early call of who I think the favourites are, but it is wide open right now. And so with 3 Ferraris inside the top 5, they're looking like the dominating force at the moment.
The new pit building there you can see that's replaced the old Funeral Oil Tower. This is the car that's the quickest then. And number 50 has Lilo Wadu at the wheel. So I think they have gone through everybody in this session. Arthur Leclerc at the start to do the time. And Sean Gillard a brief stint to Lilo Wadu now, having been a IMSA Endurance GTD champion a few seasons back. The time, the 218 wound up by Arthur Leclerc from earlier, but Lilo at the wheel of the car right now. Full course yellow is only on short notice. And we go green with just about 10 seconds now remaining. So for those that are in the chicane, check the flag beckons.
And then we will obviously box at the end of that lap. And the next time we see these cars is qualifying, and suddenly it's a very different proposition. Cars still have to weave left. To try and get that temperature back up, maybe just cleaning the tyres as well. And that was a theme, wasn't it, last year? The pickup was huge for drivers having to go offline, either being overtaken or being the overtaker. So again, all information for drivers and teams.
So 50 Ferrari back on pace. This is the quick car in the session. The flag is out, so all of these drivers will take the checker flag at the end of this lap. So to see where the other surprises may be, well, almost half the field, you could argue, should be higher up the order, but sheer weight of numbers means that somebody's got to miss out. But we haven't really yet seen the cars start to do a proper qualifying run, and that's going to be very interesting indeed in that next session to see who can do what.
Take all the fuel out, you whack some new tyres on, the driver given that freedom to push. It's the only time of the weekend that a crash is almost allowable because you are on the limit. You've got to find not every 10, not every 100, every 1,000th. And there will be cars that will be on the same lap time to the 1,000th. That shows you how competitive this field will be.
So, as Lilo Wadu's Ferrari heads for the checkered flag, what else do we have? Where did the number 24 Corvette get to? That went to 30th. Number 8 Porsche that's being looked at for the incident.
So Lilo Wadu at the top of the session in the 50 Ferrari. Then it's Gotts, Rivera. So Ferrari looking quick here in the late part of FP2. 218.1. 69, of course, that does not end our weekend. There's still a lot more to come. Of course, race day to come a bit later on in the weekend. But, of course, I'll be back from 9:15 for a 9:30 start for FP1 practice for Formula 1. Then we're back in the morning from 7:53 from 5 to 8, for Formula 1 practice 2. Then Crowdstrike Spa 24 hours qualifying gets underway from 9 o'clock. Formula 2 then on track from 7:45 that night. FP3 then on track from 8:30 for Formula 1. Then it is the night today part, 9 o'clock. We come on air for the Spa 24 hours. Then we are off air at 2:30. Back on air at 3:30 for Formula 2 and Formula 1. Race day. We are off air at 1 o'clock. Then 1:15 will be Formula 1 qualifying. Followed by a 1 hour break. F2 on track from 3:30. Of course, this on Sunday. Then Monday, it is race day for Formula 1. 3:30 race start. Of course, I will continue to schedule the rest of these streams coming up. And of course, it is the 50 Ferrari on top. Here at the end of the free practice session, drivers now making their way up through towards the top part of the circuit. FP2, absolutely hectic in itself here. And very good to see what is to come here this afternoon. But of course, still got qualifying still to come. And of course, as I said, the main event this weekend of the Crowdstrike Spa 24 hours, 8:55 tomorrow morning, qualifying. there. And F2 qualifying from 7:45. Tomorrow, Formula 1 FP3, as we take a look now at the classification. The 50 Ferrari over the 17 Mercedes in second, 218.1. Then over the 51 Ferrari of Alessio Rovera in the 51 Ferrari. Then leading the silver class, Michael Porter Shrandov in the 71 gold class car. It's the 48 Mercedes, the 59 McLaren of Joseph Loke, Dean McDonald, and Martin Kirchhofer. Ricardo Feller, Kastlik, and Arjen Miney, who I don't even think got a run there. But of course, in the gold class, the 71 Ferrari tops that session. In the bronze class, it is the 87 Winwood car, who I think ended off with Dietz that was inside that car. It might have been Salvinkov inside that car at the end of the session. In the Pro-Am class, as well as we move on, in the overall class, though, it is Arthur Leclerc who topped that session in that run there, as we continue to make our way through. And nearly 70 cars to run through. The 89 Porsche, the 89 Porsche, 914 Porsche, 60 Ferrari, 11 Aston Martin, 42 BMW, 117, 177, and the 89 Porsche as well. So yeah, still plenty more to come. But of course, it should be very interesting to see what happens. Again, running through the rest of the day, 9:30 FP1. Tomorrow, 7:55, 5 to 8, Formula 1 FP2. Qualifying, Crowdstrike Spa 24 hours, 8:55. Formula 2 then on air later that night from 7:45. So we take a look at the Corvette making its run through the chicane. FP3 for Formula 1 from 8:30. We'll be on air from 25 minutes past 8. Spa 24 hour then. Our coverage kicks underway from 8:55. We are then on air from 1 o'clock for the start of Formula 1 qualifying. Then Formula 2 feature race from 3:30. And of course, Monday, 3:30 for Formula 1 race start on air from 3:25. As we take a look at a couple of replays, there is the stunning livery of the Aston Martin making its run through, and along with the Ferrari. I think every car at least has one stunning livery here this week, and it's very good to see. We saw the red flag come out for the the Audi that was in the barrier. A few fans watching on. A few cars running wide on the exit of the corner. A few drivers battling for position there. Look in the background. Big snap from the 23 McLaren. McLaren and Audi going together. McLaren getting way up the curb on the exit as well. There, one of the Ferraris. Big snap under braking. That the 50 Ferrari that topped the session. But in the end, 50 Ferrari topped free practice. That does us. We're back from 9:30 for FP1.